If there were a Mount Rushmore of Singapore foreign policy, Kishore would be one of the four people on that Mount Rushmore. We'll start with this. James Crabtree, our friend James, just wrote in Foreign Policy magazine last month. He said, Biden has a serious credibility problem in Asia. U.S. allies have grown comfortable with Trump and his tough approach to China and are anxious about a Biden victory. What's your reaction to that thesis of our friend?
Well, James is a good friend, and I respect his views. But I must be speaking to different Asians. Most of the Asians that I speak to will be happy to see the end of a United States that is so unpredictable, that is so chaotic, and so changeable. This is not the United States that we have grown used to. And and one reason why there's a lot of pro-American sentiments in Southeast Asia is that the United States had always had a very benevolent presence in Southeast Asia. And by the way, there's more American investment in Southeast Asia than there is in the rest of East Asia combined, China, Japan, Korea. That's quite remarkable. So this has really been proven to be a very lucrative place for American businesses, Southeast Asia. So, but we always, I personally, by the way, got to know so many American senior officials, Ambassador Richard Holbrooke, and I can tell you, for example, after the United States left Vietnam, there was a lot of nervousness in non-communist Southeast Asia. We thought we were supposed to collapse like dominoes. Instead, the opposite happened. The other side had problems, not the ASEAN countries. But we got used to having very close, friendly relationships with the United States. But now, with the Trump administration, as you know, they don't have ambassadors in the region. They haven't had an ambassador in Singapore in 4 years, and you're not quite sure what's going to happen from day to day, and things change very quickly. And so it is really very difficult. And just as the Europeans, as you know, have been very, very troubled by the Trump administration's views. And clearly, it was good to try and renegotiate trade deals with China. That was the right thing to do. But there are ways and means of doing it without having to launch an all-out trade war. And I can tell you that when COVID-19 broke out, the one thing that everyone in East Asia wanted to see was a logical rule of geopolitics. The logical rule of geopolitics is that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So in World War II, when Winston Churchill decided that Hitler was his enemy, Stalin, an even more brutal dictator, became his friend. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So when COVID-19 is an enemy of America and COVID-19 is an enemy of China, both sides should have come together to deal with COVID-19, to kill COVID-19 first. And all the region would have been delighted if the United States and China decided to cooperate against COVID-19. That would have been good for the United States, good for China, and good for the region. But for the United States and China to continue the trade war while we are struggling to deal with COVID-19, that makes life much, much more difficult. We want to see economic growth come back to this region. And clearly this trade war is going to be disruptive. So clearly of course the US-China geopolitical contest will not end when Biden takes over. It will definitely continue. Biden cannot stop it, So, but at least it'll be done hopefully in a much more stable and predictable way, and not in a sort of chaotic way. And at the end of the day, as you know, the US trade deficit with China hasn't gone down significantly at all. So what did your trade war accomplish?
Do you think if there were a Biden administration and it were to come back and have a more predictable and consistent foreign policy based on a more of a multilateral approach, would the governments in Southeast Asia look at the U.S. as if these 4 years were an aberration, or have things fundamentally changed now, and the U.S. is going to have to is going to be looked at differently after a one term of Donald Trump, let alone a second term, but even just if it was one term?
Well, I think they would see the 4 years of they would see the chaotic years as an aberration. Because what's interesting is that you notice that ASEAN countries have had close ties with the United States in the Republican administration and the Democratic administration consistently. Doesn't matter whether it's Reagan, Clinton, Bush, Obama. We've always had good relations. So I think if Biden comes back, there'll be a huge sense of relief, I think, in this region. And of course, the friends of James Crabtree will be disappointed. But that's not the way I see it. I mean, even Japan and South Korea, your closest allies, have had a very hard time with the Trump administration because they're very transactional and say, why don't you pay us more for American soldiers in Japan? And actually, the reality is this, I've been told. If the United States withdrew the US soldiers from Japan back to the United States, that it would cost the US Defense Department so much more money because they're getting free accommodation, free this, free that, free everything in Japan. So it's actually in many ways a gift from Japan. It's a win-win arrangement, of course, on both sides.
So if what outside of Asia, just China only, do you think China would see itself as benefiting more from a second Trump term, or would it see itself benefiting more from Trump losing and Biden becoming president?
It's very when you ask a question about the Chinese, the most important point I need to stress to you is that 4 years is irrelevant to them. 4 years doesn't matter, So they know that it could be either Trump winning or Biden winning. So if Trump wins, they get short-term pain, right? Trump is so difficult to deal with. There'll be more sanctions, more tariffs, more attacks on Huawei, but it's long-term gain. Because, one of the most influential columnists in the world told me privately, I can't cite him, he said to me, Kishore, if Trump gets re-elected, the West is dead. So if the second Trump administration kills the Western alliance, this is a gift to China. Just as its withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership was a gift to China. So, if Biden wins, you get short-term gain and long-term pain. Because if the alliance comes back and becomes stronger, then China gets more boxed in, right? So, but it doesn't matter. In any case, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, whichever administration, Chinese are not looking 4 years down the road. They're probably looking 30, 40 years down the road, right? They can live with 3 to 4 years of, they survived 4 years of Trump already. They can survive another 4 years. It won't change the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are that China was the number one economy in the world. China and India were the number one, number two economies in the world for 1800 other 2000 years. So for the next 1,000 years, China will again be number one or number two economy in the world. That's not going to change, right? We went through a great aberration when in 1950, China and India, who used to have 50% of the world's economy, right, went down to 5% in 1950, 5%. So now they're bouncing back to where they were in the past. And so that long-term trend, the return of China, will continue whether you're Biden, Trump, or anybody else. That ain't going to change the long-term trajectory.
You talked about obviously the conflicts between the U.S. and China right now. A lot of that being economic and technological, on 5G and on Huawei, in addition to all of the other economic issues the Trump administration had laid out. China has conflicts in the South China Sea. We just you just outlined the conflicts China is having with India. It sounds like China's in conflict with a lot of people. Why is it that China is engaged in all of these disputes right now? And is this something that President Xi and the party should be doing differently?
Well, I'm glad you used the word conflicts. Because the strange thing about China's behavior is that China has actually behaved very unusually. For a great power, China is the only great power that hasn't fought a war in 40 years. I think the United States has been fighting a war every year or every second year. Even in the last year of the Obama administration, the United States government dropped 26,000 bombs on 7 countries. The Chinese have not dropped a single bomb on any country in 40 years. And also, the last, leaving aside the recent China-India border incident, the last actual shooting of bullets took place 30 years ago between Chinese and Vietnamese in a naval skirmish. Now, it is true that China has become more and more assertive, but I draw a line between being assertive and being aggressive. Let's try and keep China away from being aggressive. We have to live with an assertive China. You cannot, as I say, if you have a tiger in the room, you have a tiger in the room. But let's not have a tiger that pounces on you. That's a big difference.
And in my closing question, we're going to try and end on as optimistic a note as possible. You know, you're doing a lot of work now on the Asian Peace Program. The two biggest issues facing, I think, the U.S., China, and the world right now, it's climate change, and it's certainly COVID and future pandemics. Do you see the U.S. and China and other countries being able to come together and put aside their differences and address, what really are the largest issues facing both countries?
Well, that is at the end of the day the key goal of my book. So far, we've been talking about how the US-China contest is inevitable, but as I emphasized at the beginning, I believe it's also avoidable. And right now, the world has transformed itself, and it's become very clear we live in a small, interdependent global village. That's what COVID-19 is telling us. And so we should come together as humanity, all of us, to try and fix these larger global challenges like global warming and COVID-19 and all. And as you know, in the last page of my book, I say that if the US and China keep on fighting each other while global warming is happening, future historians will describe them as two tribes of apes fighting each other while the forest around them was burning. Now, we would say the apes are very stupid. The only apes who do that. In theory, we, the human beings, are supposed to represent the most intelligent species of planet Earth. If we truly are the most intelligent species of planet Earth, we would not destroy the only planet that we have to live on. It's like going out to sea and sinking the only ship that you're on, right? And that's what we are doing by keeping up this geopolitical contest while there's so many global challenges coming away. So the best thing we can do is to press the pause button on this geopolitical contest and say, okay, maybe future generations will take it up. But for now, let us focus on our common challenges and try and get back the world economy back to growth, get rid of COVID-19, slow down climate change, slow down global warming. Those should be our priorities, not this geopolitical contest, which I think is completely unnecessary.
Well, Kishore, I want to thank you so much on behalf of the American Club for spending this hour with us. And I can tell you, I've never seen more questions come up in a chat that were that showed the intense interest of the audience. For those who haven't read it, you really get this book. You can get it on Amazon. You can walk over next time you're at the club. Just walk over to Kinokuniya, and you can buy a copy there and other places as well. And hopefully, Kishore, when we get to phase 3, we can have you back to the club, give you a towel in person, and have you sign some books for some people as we'll go through part 2.
Yes, I need another towel. It's a great towel, though.
we will find one. Thank you so much. Thanks American Club for hosting this.
Thank you very much, Steve. Bye-bye.